Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Boss Rush right here. Well, on Fridays, right? Which is where we always do this. My name is Chris Melasinos. I'm the principal evangelist for video games over here at AWS. And with me is...
Yeah, Dean Takahashi. I'm the editorial director at GameSpeak.
That's right. And our special guest for today...
Thank you, Amir Satvat, Business Development Director at Tencent Games, and I also run Amir Satvat's Games Community.
That's right. And Amir, I went ahead and made sure I had a special piece of audio keyed up for you today. Let me see if we're going to get it to play. So we got the Oh Banana for you from Donkey Kong. There we go.
I love it. I love
it. So Mark and Susan are unfortunately not able to be with us today. So we hope they have an awesome weekend and back with us next week as well. But again, we're thrilled to have Amir with us. For those of you that are joining the live stream, if you have any questions, comments for anybody here today, please go ahead and pop them into the chat. We'll get to them. And yeah, Dean, we're going to jump straight into the news with you because you have been kicking it on the road there. And tell us where you were last Friday instead of here with us on Boss Rush.
Well, I was flying back from the Battlefield event, and they had the 3 days worth of reveal for Battlefield multiplayer for Battlefield 6. And right now, last night, they started the large open beta for Battlefield 6, and I played some last night. I played about 6 hours last week, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a crazy experience when you look at all the destruction and realistic graphics that they're capable of now. It's pretty amazing. It does look a lot better than a lot of other experiences like this destructible environments is really what sets Battlefield apart still.
So, all right. It's good. Go ahead, Amir. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to quickly add, I smiled when I saw Dean had made a post about everyone saying Battlefield is back and it hasn't even launched yet. And he's right. But I think people are really excited because so many of us want to see a nice big win. And just echoing what Dean said, everybody I know who played not only praised a lot of the things he said across the board, but even smaller things too, like the network performance and stuff like that. And so I can't think of one person I've heard who wasn't like, I didn't think he was great. And that bodes awfully well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fidelity, the environments looked really good. How do you compare it to, like the last Battlefield or for Call of Duty? Being our resident kind of first-person shooter expert there, Dean.
I do think, it is a fast game. It's a 60 frames a second game. And so you don't notice as much trade-off, I think, as in some past Battlefield games where the environment and everything around it looks so pretty, but then you can't draw a bead on somebody and shoot them, right? And so I think in the gunplay part of the game that Call of Duty still has advantages. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like when you try to execute something, you try to draw a target on someone, pull the trigger, see what the impact is, and do that quickly before they get you. I think that's really well done in Call of Duty, and in Battlefield it's harder. You want I can probably win 1-to-1 in that kind of draw battle with in Call of Duty players, but in Battlefield for some reason it's like I get killed twice for every one that I get, and I don't know exactly what that is. Like, it could be in this early stage of the game that just playing with guns that are not leveled up, right? but I don't know that yet. It's like how much it's going to change or improve as I level up in the game. So we'll see. But otherwise, it looks far more beautiful than other games, and the destruction of the environment is real. It makes sense, and they also said that that they, you know, they make physics serve the purpose of fun, and so it used to be that like you would blow up a building or something in the middle of an area you have to protect, and then eventually there's so many explosions there that there's no cover at all, right? And you're trying to defend this spot with you know, a flag on it or something, and there's no way you can hide. And so they say they're not going to create those kinds of destruction environments now. So the cover will fall, the building will fall, but you know, there'll be all kinds of cover there for you still, even if it gets blasted by a tank 30 times or something like that. Right?
Got it.
You know, so,
other than that, or they have to give you a mechanics, let's just dig a hole. Nothing is there. So you got to dig a hole so you can get down into it.
Yeah, I think it's well thought out in how they've approached it, I think, so far.
Very cool. So I do one last question about that. How is it like going to one of those events now, given that we've got, you know, we don't have like, well, I shouldn't say it this way. Does it feel the same, like a big launch spectacle that they did? Is it the same, you know, kind of size and excitement that, you know, we used to kind of feel or experience? Does it feel a little different now? Like, how was the scale size of the event?
It was fun. You know, they picked a nice location that was next to a skyscraper that was under construction, and it looks like one of those buildings that they're going to knock over in the game. So, and then they have a bunch of military vehicles all there, and about 300 people coming in. A lot of them were creators, and a lot of them were some of the famous ones, like say Shotzi, right? One of the best Call of Duty players in the world. And so they had them put on a show, and that was interesting. They had a party with a DJ, guy named DJ Pee Wee.
Oh yeah,
so it was a real effort to bring back the kind of spectacles that you would see only at places like E3, right?
Right. Yeah. Very, very cool. Hey,
Yeah, so I
Amir,
enjoyed
have
it.
you seen much about it? Do you play a lot of those types of games as well? Are you first-person shooter gamer?
The funny thing is, it's actually fun having me in the conversation for that as a contrast to Dean, because there's two genres that I actually don't play very much of anymore. One is shooters and the other one is sports. And so if I get looped into either of these, it's always a good sign, because if they're pulling me in, that's pretty good. So so I feel pulled in by this for kind of the atmospheric reasons that Dean said. So, for example, I love Battlefield 4 because it had a lot of destructible stuff. I loved in 5 the aspect of like having the war and stuff like that. And on some of the ones in between, maybe I didn't feel as enthusiastic. So I would say they pull me in on that type of stuff, or like in a game like GTA or something like that, where, yeah, there's shooting, but it's an overarching story. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I would note that I had trouble getting in at first because I needed help, and my friend Mark Chandler had me do a clean install of the driver, and also make sure I was in a secure boot mode in order to actually make the game work. And so I think there were millions of people yesterday searching for this. How do you make Battlefield work? So thanks to Mark, he got me in. Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart there.
Yeah, look, I like to say I like the idea of first-person shooters, meaning that I love them, but I'm not good at them anymore, and I don't have enough time to spend to become proficient, and so that's where it kind of turns me off. So I go back to things that are around the genres that I like. Although Battlefront, but Battlefield, yeah, I think back to when Battlefield 1942 first launched. We used to do LAN parties with this stuff, right? And Tom Ham and I used to actually host LAN parties in Northern Virginia, which were just fantastic. And the cool thing too was we would always do this where everybody that would show up, maybe 30 people, we'd rent a huge conference room at a hotel in Reston, Virginia, and everyone was required to bring speakers, so no headphones. And we were playing for a full 2 days straight, and so it sounded like a war zone in the lobby of the hotel. Like workers coming in at like 2 a.m. going, "What the hell is going on in here?" But what I do remember most, that was most fun about it, was the chaos of grabbing a vehicle and then getting your squad into the vehicle with you to be able to traverse the environment. And that just felt completely just unbelievable, with that feeling. So my very fond memories go back to it, but it's so freaking gorgeous that I know I'm going to have to jump in and play. Right.
The time that I went bonkers with shooters was with Half-Life 1 multiplayer. My friends and I loved having LAN parties, and they'd bring their towers, but the only room we could do it in was a small office. And so we would close the door, and my parents would open the door at like 6 a.m, and we would still be playing. And my mom would be like, "It's 100 degrees in here. How are you guys not dying?" Like,
exactly. And nobody showered for 2 days. And terrible. Oh, awesome. All right. So what big news do you have kind of at the top of your brain there, Dean, that we should discuss?
Let's see. Well, we have Mafia, the Old Country launches today. And it's another game from Take-Two, from their Hangar 13 studio, a 2K game. And I think the interesting test here is that, like, the last time a Mafia game came out, it was Mafia 3 in 2016. They did remakes since then, but that was a true AAA game. Great story. I can't remember exactly how long, but I'm thinking 30, 40 hours of gameplay, right?
Right.
And this one is a $50 game. It's cheaper than AAA, and it is a 10-hour game. And so I don't know how the Mafia fans are going to react to it. It's not, it's coming in at like 76 out of 100 so far on ratings. And yeah, I think, there's a good chance that AAA fans will be disappointed that there's not enough there for them. And I don't know what you do in this kind of case, because these games are very expensive to make, right? And,
right.
Even though it's the same studio, the Mafia studio, Hangar 13, that's making the game, this is what they could bite off and get done and ship. And it is 9 years later, right after the last Mafia game they did.
Yeah.
So I don't, I think what I would hope that the game companies start leaning into is that for those fans who are hardcore fans, they're going to play this game. They may be disappointed by it. Then you should then give them the option of creating their own. So, all the AI game creation tools that are coming out now, things, that something like Roblox already has, I think they should just ship those tools with this kind of game and say, you don't like our game? Well, you can create your own.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Battlefield is doing with, the portal part for user-generated content. So you can make your own maps and you can play them.
Yeah. Right? And aren't they using like the Godot engine for that to be able to create the maps for it? So easily accessible, free, open source engine. It's amazing little engine, and with an amazing community behind it too.
And so like big company like EA can do that, but small studio like Hangar 13 can also benefit from that kind of tool. I think it's just you keep the players engaged and creative.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, thinking about Mafia, and one of the things that it's coming in less expensive than a typical AAA game. Amir, in your kind of in the data that you poll and kind of trends that you see, How do you feel about smaller games coming in less expensive? Do you think that is a space that's going to continue to grow, or, is this something that's going to land well, do you think, with kind of, people that are attuned to these AAA type experiences?
It's very interesting. I think about this title. I also think about the recent announcement from Probably Monsters. Yeah, that the two titles that they're doing are these smaller AA games.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is, based upon everything that I'm seeing, um, certainly when you talk to any AAA company and you ask them, what do you want to do or what do you want to pivot off to? Everybody will say the same talking points, that things are taking too long to ship. They're too expensive. They need to figure out something else. What are they going to do? I think in terms of how do you actually make that practical and what do you do, there just aren't still terribly many examples of that versus people kind of doing the same AAA box products that they've been doing. And so I think Dean is probably right that it's like, these are going to be the tests. And so far, I feel like it's still, in my opinion, showing for the consumer side, certainly tough for people to kind of accept this. Everybody says and nods their heads that like, oh yeah, I'd like a $40 to $50 quality experience that's only like 10 hours, 15 hours, whatever it is. But when you actually show them that, I think like the market isn't there. Maybe it's just like minds need to shift a little bit. And then of course, if you go to the other extreme and you talk about like a $15 or $20 game, I think a lot of people have something in their mind of what that looks like. Maybe that's a Raw Fury game. Maybe that's like a Cuphead game, but I still think that's quite a different experience from what people are expecting. Actually, funny enough, if you go to the other end, I feel like everyone is constantly complaining about all the $80 games too. So I just feel like it's this period of experimentation where no one seems really happy with anything, and like they have to figure out kind of like where they're going to go.
You just encapsulated the sentiment we've been dealing with for decades. No one's just completely happy with. You're not going to make everybody happy. That's true.
Yeah.
There was another game that shipped this week from Abu Bakr Salim's Surgeon Studios, and they had a real tough time trying to get a sequel to the Zao game that they had shipped, and so they pivoted. They got funding from the PAL World folks, Pocket Pair, and they put out something like a 10-hour experience called Dead Take, and it was like an escape room puzzles with a horror narrative to it, and they put it out for $15. And they had gotten this game done probably, I would say, I think within 9 months or so.
Wow.
And yeah, it's I'm playing through it, and it's a nice experience. It's not 10 hours of shooter game like Mafia, right? But it's a 10-hour, sort of alone in the dark kind of a experience, I guess.
Alone in the dark, yeah. Another 8 polygon, 15 frame per second throwback. Dean's got them all. In fact, Dean, have you?
They did a remake of it.
Have you played Atari today, Dean? If not, I've got some magazines here. Some old die-hard game fan we can leaf back through and look at the launch of the Atari Jaguar.
But Chris, I think if we take out the crystal ball and we try to predict where this is going to go, this reminds me of a while ago now, over a year, when Dean challenged me about trying to see globally where hiring and where kind of the resources were going. And I haven't published the new one yet. Dean, of course, will be the first to see it. But like the data that I'm seeing, the preliminary data suggests what I had observed about open roles, unfortunately, if you're in North America, being less and less in North America, 25% or less of open roles, and more of it being in Asia, Eastern Europe, and so forth. That trend is not showing signs of slowing down. And so if I was to hazard a guess, whether it's good or bad or in between, just being factual about it, I think what will happen is people will take that $50 price point and either through some combination of better tooling or headcount in lower cost areas, that game will go from being a 10-hour game to being like a $25 or $30 hour game as they simply get the cost lower, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just looks like the construction and shape of the industry is just changing. And while, we're seeing the kind of, as we've talked about ad infinitum, right, for the past almost 2 years now, the adjustments that the industry is going through, what's happening is it's shifted the size of studios, the amount of them that are starting up. And so, going forward, the industry doesn't look like it used to anymore from a developer perspective, right? I do think there's going to be a place where that mid-tier developer comes back to the middle from the edge of massive amount of output from the indie side. And when I mean indie, I mean truly down to like the hobbyist indie, to the lower amount, but financially lucrative AAA side, that the gravity is pulled to the edges, right? So that middle has kind of disappeared. I think we're going to start to see that flow in over the next 2 to 3 years, right? These smaller games by smaller studios that may be looking at more traditional funding, right, to get by. And like Richard, Brownlee and everybody online that talked about this stuff, right, about how do we get back to that sustainable type of development. I think that's what we're going to see. But that's far afield from what we were talking about. So let's go ahead and bring it right back.
There was some more news out of Take-Two. They did their earnings report yesterday. They had a pretty good quarter. I had a chance to interview Strauss Zelnick for like 15 minutes or so. And, it's interesting with Strauss when you talk to him and ask him questions, you can tell how interested he is in your question by how long his answer is. he can give very short answers to some of your questions. And so I asked him, was there anything new you've thought about with like AI in games? And he said, no, not since the last time we've talked. and so he gave a relatively short answer there. But during the analyst call yesterday, somebody asked about like the opportunity in mobile, and it kind of jived with one of the questions I asked him too about mobile games. And what he said was exciting about mobile right now is that you can launch brand new IPs and test them out there, see how they go. Rollic in particular is, a division of Zynga that's a hyper casual game maker, making mobile games that, maybe last 1 or 2 minutes at a time at a play. And he said, the acceptance of original IP in this space is pretty incredible still. That you can get these small games and they can turn into, $100 million franchises fairly quickly.
Right.
So he was excited about that, but he was also excited in the question in the analyst Q&A about the opportunity that's arising because of the alternative app stores now. And that the notion, that both Google and Apple have been reined in enough on the antitrust side so that big game publishers, all game companies now have the option to sell stuff on their web shops and not face any consequences from the big distribution partners like Apple and Google.
Yeah.
And he was talking in a way that made him sound like a bit more like Tim Sweeney than Strauss Zelnick. It's interesting to see, the leaders of the industry say, like Strauss, point this out and say, look, we want to pay a fair price, right? And 30% is not the fair price. And so, interesting to see them take full advantage about it. And so when Strauss talked a lot, he talked about things like this and mobile and what he was excited about. I think and then he said basically, yeah, if you're looking at PC and console games, it's going to be like something like a 6 after its name, right? So
right. Yeah, I think one of the most interesting comments I heard from Strauss from another interview that was done early in the year, they asked him about GTA 6 delays and these sorts of things. And then the reporter asked him about what games he likes to play. And he's like, I don't play video games. He's like, I'm not a gamer. And they're like, but you run this company right? That ostensibly is like making these world-crushing, sort of games. And he said, my responsibility is not to be the most, passionate gamer. My job is to create a company and an environment that brings the most passionate game creators, the most passionate, talented artists, right? Those people here, and then manage that environment for them to grow. And so I think it was a wonderful moment of candor and just, no, I'm not a gamer, but I don't need to be to create an environment where incredible games can be created. Clearly understands the business, right? But he's like, that's not my skill. He's like, I like games, but that's not my my core skill. So I thought that was
you contrast
really
him
good.
to some other CEO types out there, like say Frank Jabot and Phil Spencer. Like they play a lot of games,
Right. Exactly.
So interesting that
Yeah.
Strauss will admit that I'm a suit,
Yeah,
I'm not a creative guy.
but I understand how to make the environment good for the people that can create. And I thought that was awesome.
One thing that's interesting about what Dean said that I want to zoom in on is this idea of IP creation. So something that I think is curious is I looked at games 20, 25 years ago versus games now. And I know critical rating is not the same thing as sales, but it used to be, right? 10 to 20% of those games were indie games. Now that number is more like 60 or 70%. And you
Right.
also see a higher percentage on mobile as well. But the other interesting thing is, if you look at those indie games and you're like, how many of these were like an indie-like project from a big studio versus something like Balatro, where it was like 1 or 2 or 5 kind of runaway people who were like, we want to create this idea. Most games that are the top critically rated fall into one of 2 categories. They're either games that are made by really big studios, or they're games made by kind of new kids on the block or really small studios that are doing these types of things. And so whether on PC, console, or mobile, I think what's interesting is I think everyone talks about this potential for new IP creation, new ideas, new concepts, but I still don't see that in a systematic way that big places seem to be able to do that in a kind of repeatable way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to do that, right? So do you guys know the concept of the painted door ad? Right?
Oh,
So the concept in marketing is you create or you broadcast or discuss a feature that doesn't exist yet to see how the audience is going to react. And so we see that a lot with, unfortunately, where we see ads, it's like this game, and then you go to download it, and it's an entirely different game, which I also thought there were like advertising standards, right, to stop that kind of behavior. But anyway, the not quite a painted door example, but with mobile, then they can create these small, bite-sized, quick to jump in pieces of gameplay, right? And that is where people that play specifically on mobile are attuned to doing, which is, I'm going to download this. Go back and look at your own queue of purchases, right, through an app store over the years. You probably have, more in there than you typically have, like in a, hardcore Steam library, right? And so to his point, it's a great platform to be able to trial things. And if the barrier to entry is so low that people can just taste it and try it, yeah, you do have the opportunity to spin it, but you have to have the resources then to be able to follow up quickly, do fast follow, and build the game that people, want out of that. Yeah, we do need to get rid of that painted door type of ad unit, though. But suffice to say, again, in mobile, right, it's an opportunity to go ahead and get very quick feedback loops because there's almost no friction to getting access to it as a player. Unlike PC, where even with something like Steam or even the app stores on consoles, it feels to me like just it's a little more friction there than the mobile ads and mobile app store of let me just go ahead and download this, right? Just kind of one click, one touch to download. So
in 2025, when you say painted door, all I can think of is blueprints. Yeah.
Which I still didn't finish, and I was like, ah, damn it. And then I just kind of walked away from it.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to some other news. Amir, is there any big news piece that popped up for you this week?
Let me think for a second.
not to put you on the spot there, you come up with one while
I will think on that.
I'll go for a couple more.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Red Octane Games came back, and
Mhm.
they were the original creators of Guitar Hero.
Yes.
And they got bought by Activision. And for like a 4-year run or so, Guitar Hero had became $1 billion franchise, and it was almost like Skylanders, shooting out of the gate, and Activision did very well with it, and then it all collapsed, and
under the weight of 1,000 big boxes
shut
in
down,
a store.
shut down Red Octane. They made another attempt to do Guitar Hero in 2015. And that one failed, and then we haven't seen a Guitar Hero game since. So a bunch of the fans of Red Octane, wound up with Embracer, which is now Fellowship, and the COO there, Lee Guinchard, was one of these people, and they saw that there was a whole huge Guitar Hero community still, people playing with fake guitars, and so. They thought about this for a while. They interacted with them. They hired some of them, and they assembled this sort of incubation team. And then said, let's just make a guitar and see what people think. And so they teamed up with Gibson, and they made this brand new Les Paul guitar for Guitar Hero like games, rhythm gaming they're calling them. They don't have the Guitar Hero brand, but these rhythm games, music rhythm games, they think. Can make a comeback, and so because that guitar was so well received, now they greenlit the studio, and they're making a rhythm game. So that's fun. And then the other thing that's back is Ashes of the Singularity 2, a real-time strategy game that debuted like a decade ago, and it was unique among RTS games where you could put 100,000 units into the battle. And you could control them all, and there would just be this massive battle.
So it's basically the Helm's Deep battle, basically.
It's
right?
like a sci-fi, setting, so almost more like a Death Star battle or something like that, right? And they launched that. It was successful, but this Oxide Games, they went on to other things, and they finally came around to making it again with Stardock, the original publisher. And the thing that's going to be different now. In this 2026 RTS is that they're going to have AI agents in it, and the AI agents will control big chunks of those 100,000 units out there, so that you don't have to micromanage what's going on in a corner of the battle or something, and you can think more strategically as the human in charge of this massive battle. And you can think of the AI agents as more like commanders, like different commanders in the field,
right?
And you just tell them, go take that hill, right? And the thing I want this to get to is like AI agents with their own personalities, right? And so like it could be like the Civil War Battle of Gettysburg or something, and you could tell Longstreet to go take that hill, and here take 4 hours to get ready to do it, and then you could tell Pickett, go take that hill, and here just send his whole division straight in, and disaster will happen or something, right? So like the different personalities for the AI agents would be quite fun in that kind of massive battle setting, I think.
Yeah, that sounds amazing and just too much to hold in my brain at once. I was never good at RTSs because, being ADHD, I'm like, wait, what was that thing doing that I sent it over to do there? And where did they go? And I've got 50 other things that are distracting my attention over here. That's why I'm the big red button gamer.
And they found that one measure of the successful champions of RTS was actions per minute. And if you could get like 150 or 200 actions done in 1 minute, then you would be a great RTS player.
Okay. Again, I love the idea of them.
Yeah.
For me.
Oh, Chris, I do have, and Dean, I do have one for you actually, which I'm sure won't surprise you, which is I was pleased to say, but it fills me with a lot of thoughts actually, to have Nintendo and Doug Bowser announced their quarterly results for Switch. And so
Mhm.
first,
Mhm.
interesting looking in the rearview mirror that Switch 1 hit, 153 million units. So like just behind DS and like
Mhm.
6-7 million, I think, behind PlayStation 2. But more relevantly,
Mhm.
um, Switch 2 at 6 million units and
Mhm.
having sold 9 million units roughly of software, near total attach of Mario Kart World to the
Mhm.
Switch 2, and now into the second title, also a Donkey Kong. And
Mhm.
you figure for most people that I feel out with, and I did a poll on this, a community and chit chatting, there's still many people who aren't the hardcores that really aren't going to come barreling in until they get that first Mario or Zelda game. You figure they're going to have the movie. So, like, I think it all bodes very well. But I felt a little bit sad kind of thinking about how
Mhm.
Xbox is moving away in some ways from maybe traditional hardware, thinking
Mhm.
about how Nintendo is kind of increasingly a little bit in a very good island, but of like doing their own thing, and wondering like how many more generations will we get of this thing that kind of is what games have been to all three of us for much of our life.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, and Sony reported their earnings as well this week, and the interesting thing was they had a good quarter, they had an up quarter. They did sell more PlayStation 5s this quarter than they did a year ago, right? And so they're not in the same boat that the Switch was, where Switch sales of the machine were declining over time, like they were down dramatically, right? And so this Switch 2 came just in time for Nintendo now, or was really overdue, right? Um, uh, but Sony did well this quarter because they had a bunch of Xbox games that were sitting on top of the PlayStation 5 now and selling really well. And so Indiana Jones, all these games that were exclusives for Xbox are making their way onto the PlayStation, right? And so
yeah.
um, yeah, I think interesting dynamics that are happening, and yeah, I think everybody is quite. Um, I don't know. I think everybody's been shell shocked by a lot of layoffs in the industry, but when you have the fastest selling console of all time happening right now, this is fantastic news for the industry, right? And so
Yeah. No,
Nintendo is a bright spot.
yeah, I agree. And I think, when we talk about Nintendo not being for the core gamer, I still think that at some point we get most of them coming in anyway, because there are going to be titles that speak to them and the portability of it and some of the social features that they've kind of built into there. And I think part of the decline that we saw, the drop of Switch and Switch 2 coming in was kind of the Osborne effect, right?
Mhm.
You're all familiar
Mhm.
with the Osborne effect,
Yeah.
right? And so, when you announce it too far ahead of time, then people are like, well, the next one's coming.
Mhm.
So I'll just wait. But, again, props to Nintendo for getting out when they did, because in 2026, when GTA 6 drops and a couple of the
Mhm.
big ones, that's going to suck a lot of the oxygen out of the room,
Yeah.
right? So now they've got a really incredible start to the platform and an adoption. I was not, Amir will attest to this. I was never a Donkey Kong Country player. I was like, it's okay, but there were other things that were coming out at the time, and so
Mhm.
I had a variety of different systems. And when the newest one came out, right,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, I don't know, it's not really for me. And Amir's like, dude, you need to check this game out. I don't care if you say you're not. And I was like, all right.
Mhm.
That's a big vote of confidence for the game. I went and picked it up, and it is just incredible, just
Mhm.
absolutely incredible. So
You
yeah.
mentioned that Osborne effect, and I've been waiting for that to hit GTA as well. And GTA 6 is coming May 26th, 2026. And when they showed launched the newest trailer for that, announcing that delay, um, you would think like, okay, game's coming out by May.
Right.
Why would anybody buy GTA 5 now, right? But the opposite happened,
Yes.
and there's a big surge in sales for GTA 5 now, and then GTA Online registrations were up 50% from a year ago, right?
Right. Well,
it's
it
super.
hasn't hit them yet, right? They did model for next quarter. Maybe they might see a decline in GTA Online, but hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna super quickly say, Chris, it's very interesting. So there's a drum to give you, Chris Milicinos, a lot of credit that you've been banging for a long time
ooh.
about how the older generations of gamers are going to now have their moment and this nostalgia moment, and you see this in many flavors. Part of it is the way people have been talking about IP and capturing value. Part of it is what Dean is saying, interestingly, which is people going into the back catalog. It reminds me of how increasingly in a lot of reports, I think Capcom said this a few weeks ago, that their revenue had been dominated by back catalog. And I think what a lot of the developers are realizing is that like they need to kind of energize and actualize the whole thing, and that maybe that is increasingly going to be part of the answer.
Yes.
Yeah, I think also, Take-Two said they have 38 titles coming, and 4 of them are remakes, and so that's not a small percentage of the overall total there.
Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
So yeah, sorry about that. This is just kind of spitballing or connecting two different sets of media with the same type of action. But right now, my wife and I are going through and watching Stranger Things, right? Because the new season, right, is gonna drop, and their release slate is amazing, right? The first chunk around Thanksgiving, the second chunk around Christmas, and then the finale on New Year's Eve. I'm like, that is just some brilliant marketing and timing there. But it's same thing with GTA 5. It's like, okay, if I'm going to spend all this time jumping in there, let me go ahead and kind of orient myself with the world of GTA, the mods that have happened, and that's the other thing too. I mean, it's just been so unbelievably extensively modded for so long that should just keep people coming back right in to play it. So anyway, yeah, GTA 6. Woo! Yeah, it's going to be a big one. Another piece of news that popped up here that the fine reporters over at GamesBeat brought up is Adam Boyer's Viratro Games consultancy expands to 10 new people, including a new podcast that is going to be helmed by Andrea, right?
Yeah, Renee. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which will be fantastic. So looking forward. There she is. So looking forward to that as well. And really, congratulations to him and the whole team there, constantly expanding and continue to grow that business. So
yeah, it was a solo effort just when he came out this spring, right? And it's a new consultancy. And, I think a lot of what he said was resonating with people. Like, there's all these problems to solve in the industry now. And to see him pull together a team of 10 people just for helping other companies or helping other studios get their act together. I think it's very interesting. Is sort of starting to move into more execution of these ideas, for those companies. Right?
Yeah, for sure. One of the comments that I love, and I was actually telling a friend the other day that Adam I've heard him use before, was we're talking about, with all the consolidation that was going on in the companies and things that fell apart. What was it? When elephants make love, it's the grass that suffers, right? So it was kind of, I was like, man, that is so, I love a good business quip like that. I'm just like, fantastic. And he joined us here on Boss Rush a couple of weeks ago too. It was just lovely to have him here. So best of luck to him and to the team there. I'm just really excited for him and for continued success.
Among the consultants out there too, Mike Vorhaus and Michael Pachter teamed up to give their consulting advice to big companies, and that's always interesting because Mike Pachter always likes to use Netflix as his punching bag for what they ought to be doing, and so they don't hold back, and it's interesting that they're gonna try to sort of coordinate their advice, I guess, as well.
There they are. I mean, I think when you've been doing this kind of work as long as they have, right, and with Pachter being on the kind of the finance and analyst side, if they're pointing you in a direction, I would listen to what they have to say, right? Because
I
they've
think
seen
that
it
the
all.
combination of the two of them too can help lead to like a more refined conversation, as opposed to one person just sort of ranting about this is what you guys ought to do, right? If they start arguing with each other about what you should do, then that becomes a more interesting sort of way to get their thoughts, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Yeah. All right. Great for them. Congrats to both of those, Mike and Michael, as you aptly put it in the article there, Dean. You had another article that popped up that I thought was pretty interesting to me, which was Ray Browser appoints David Diaz as his new CEO. So first, when I saw the title of this, I went, Ray Browser, that's a really interesting surname. And then I was like a Doug Bowser. We have a Ray Browser and Doug Bowser and Mike and Michael and right, all of these things. And then, oh no, the Ray Browser is a web browser that has been tuned for HTML5 based games and game streaming with game related features like split screen and stuff like that in there. So as a result of that article, I went ahead and downloaded it, and I'm going to further check it out, right, and kind of see what it offers. But I think it's something like up to 30% more performant for HTML5 and like WebAssembly than traditional Chrome and those sorts of things. So it's a browser that has really been optimized for web-based games, which I thought was pretty cool. So yeah. Anyway,
I keep waiting for that big moment. You know, I have such a love-hate relationship with streaming and instantly accessible games. But I think about it in terms of the consumer point. I think about my kids. I was actually talking about this the other day with my wife about Sesame Street. And our kids, our youngest could still watch, but like, 2, 4, and 6 years old, they're already aging out of Sesame Street. And only my oldest watched it a lot. And I think the real reason why is Sesame Street never really had an app or a place where you could easily find all the episodes. And they prefer to have something on the iPad or in some type of other setting rather than being set down in front of it. And so I still believe, based not only on anecdotal observations, but the data, that the kind of instantly accessible and streamable game will at some point have its moment. But I actually more believe it'll be kind of like the instantly accessible, easily played type of thing than the like more hardcore stuff that's available everywhere.
yeah, it's a shift from video games to play. So it's not about getting you in for 5 hours on this streaming thing. It's about getting you in for 5 minutes, and I'm going to do that 50 times a day. Like to have you constantly bounce in and out of this, right? Because we still have a compute issue, a capacity issue, a speed of light issue, a last mile issue. I mean, people's home networks, how many times have you all been called by a family member to, their home network's not working, devices aren't connected. It's like, okay, I got to go and clean up their router table. I have to go do all these things. Like those things are really messy. And those are the things that you can't control at the edge, which is why client compute and client-side compute, I try to never say always, right? Or never. But in this case, I'd say it almost always will be the case that client-side compute will maintain a bleeding edge over anything that you could do on the server side because you can't upgrade fast enough. You have all those other kind of things in between. But having said all of that, with the right type of games for the right type of, absolutely, like streaming can be amazing and create all these new types of experiences, not just a console replacement, right? Which is where we've seen services kind of fall by trying to, oh, don't ever buy hardware, do this. It's like, well, if somebody wants 4K, 120 hertz, HDR10, Atmos, they're going to have a 50 series card under their desk, right? That's not your audience. For everybody else, yes.
Yeah. I think of it as like the AAA folks are always racing ahead, but they always know somebody's chasing there behind them.
Of course.
And these browser-based games, like they keep raising the bar, but they're kind of like a slow-moving zombie. And you know You know, as long as I keep moving, they're never going to catch me. You know, if you ever got to that point where you have those 28 days later fast moving zombies coming at you at high speed, then you have to worry about browser games catching up to the AAA.
So basically,
you know,
Dean, what you're
someday
saying is
it's
the
gonna
browser.
happen, right?
You're saying the browser games are like the IO hole games. They just keep getting bigger and consuming more stuff in their path.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a donut country, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the other thing too, and we talked about like, you know, market movers and things like that over the years. The argument that I always make when there was all the question about, you know, why did Activision acquire King and this and that? Oh, they're going to go and pivot all those, you know, Candy Crush players to, you know, to their games and stuff. It's like, well, no. Forget repatriating money and stuff like that, right, as part of that equation. But the argument I always used is most Candy Crush players are, by example, not World of Warcraft players, but virtually every World of Warcraft player has played Candy Crush. Like, there's a difference. I kind of liken it to like Texas Hold'em, right? Friends of mine that play Texas Hold'em, they're not poker players. They just play Texas Hold'em, right? It's kind of the same thing with Candy Crush. And so, yeah, when we talk about the mass amount of people that want to go ahead and play through the browser and these types of things, right, that's going to continue, I think, to increase over time. And it doesn't mean that there isn't the place for all of these, you know, high performance AAA games. No, to the contrary, when they're not playing those things, there's more opportunity to experience more types of jump in quick to play in and out through these newer streaming platforms, through newer HTML5 distribution, through extensions of social media and things that we're doing now, right? So it's only going to get bigger. It's not, even though we deal in computers, it's not a binary choice, right? It is, if you like to play, there's going to be something for you to play across every single platform, every single type, right? From your phone in your pocket to the television on your wall. So, all right. Thanks.
Yeah. No. You're right, Chris. And I was going to quickly say, I think you're right that it's lifting up that mobile or instant experience.
Yeah.
I think it's tempting to think that for a lot of these IPs, like you said, the person playing the IP on PC console will play a similar type IP game on mobile. But if you actually look at the data, the overlap between those two groups is often like 5% or less.
Yeah.
They're just very different audiences.
Yeah. And it's your modality. I've been playing a ton of, and not that we're at that point yet, but we will be shortly. I've been playing the Namco Picross on the Switch 2. And I had sucked in most of my time because, like I said, we're also binge watching Stranger Things right now. So it's like the perfect type of game for me to jump into play. I can't play, Donkey Kong. I can't play some of the bigger games. So it's great. It doesn't mean I don't want to play them on there. It depends on my modality, frame of mind, time of frame. And speaking of games and those older type of games, I've got one last news one to share here, which is Mattel brings back Equestrian Adventures with Barbie Horse Trails. I loved seeing this, Dean, on GamesBeat because last year I did an episode of Rewind, which is like this retro video game show I was doing on Friday afternoons. But after like 90 episodes, I'm like, I think I've exhausted like enough of that for right now. And what I did was, with the Barbie movie that came out and everything, I went back and I found my kids, my girls' stack of old Barbie games that we used to have for the PC, loaded up a Windows like 98 emulator and stuff like, or virtual box so I could go ahead and load Windows 98 and live stream playing them. And some of them were really good, like compelling for that age and the kind of the environment and things like that. Some were terrible. And we didn't get all the gimmicky ones. It used to be like a Barbie genie. And it came with a plastic genie bottle that you would plug into the joystick port on an old, PC. And when you'd like pop the top, it would light up and the software would do stuff and everything else. I was just like, yeah, that whole era of the connected toys and this stuff kind of obviously disappeared in our family as our kids grew up. But seeing it back here, that makes me really happy to see that.
Yeah. I played Barbie Horse Adventures back in the day on the Xbox. and it was like such a strange title to debut on the Xbox. But my daughter, oldest daughter, and I played hours and hours of that game together. she never tired of taking a horse out and doing jumps, or brushing the horse and cleaning it and all that.
I am going to look it up right now and pop the link to that episode in the chat here because I played that in that. But what a wonderful memory, like a core memory for you and your daughter, right? It didn't need to be a Call of Duty type of game. It was a game that was a shared experience between the two of you, and that's what's super important about video games, right?
I really so I love Toys to Life, and I thought it was so cool when Skylanders was there. And someone whom I really admire is Kardik and his brother at Valen. And they've done a really smart job of thinking about how to make Toys of Life evolve and graduate and be successful. And I really think, Chris, you're tapping into something which is we've long since moved past the day of kind of the weak licensed game. But I think that when you do these things right, I still believe there's a huge amount of unmet demand and interest.
Yeah, and I found it, Dean. There it is. There is Horse Adventures Mystery Ride. And I got a chance to play this and ride horses around the ranch and and do all the, the little I got to change the name of my horse, but I always use, Burp or Fart are always like the names I put into games. So Burp was riding around the ranch there. There you go. And that's all you needed. That's all you needed to create those experiences. So, all right, keep going. I'm going to just see what other Barbie things.
No, this is great, man. Go ahead, Dean. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to mention Stormgate finally launched as well. It's version 1.0, Campaign 1, Ashes of Earth, and it's a real-time strategy game from a company that's been making the game since 2020 from Frost Giant Studios. So good to see them actually ship this week.
I'm a huge fan of cool. Tim and the team, and supported them at the highest edition that I could. And it's really a fun game. It's tough. It's so tough that oftentimes when people are making these games on the backs of these monumental successes like StarCraft and StarCraft 2, the audience, of course, is always right, but just has these monumental expectations that is so hard to match up against for something that has decades of development and stuff on top of that. I think it's a super fun game, and I've really enjoyed playing it. So I hope they have success.
So somebody mentioned here, Tony Pereira, hey buddy, mentioned in the chat, mine was Britney Spears' Dance Beat. My daughter played it like crazy. All right, pro tip, that game on the PS2 is amazing. Britney Spears' Dance Beat is still unbelievable. Great game. Really difficult, like when you get to the upper songs. Incredible music. Yeah, we loved playing that at home with our girls.
See, these are the joys that I miss out with having 3 boys. We wanted to go for one more, and I once had a colleague who was one of 7 brothers, and so I would joke with Jess, "We're not having 7 boys, Jess. I can't do it." So.
Yeah, and for you, Amir, Jay Zielinski in the chat said, "We laugh, but how many hours did we spend horse riding in Ocarina?"
Nice.
Exactly.
Good reference. Oh my god.
That's exactly right. Well, I know we're coming up here to the end of our hour, the bottom of the hour here. So let's go ahead and wrap up with what we've been playing. Dean, well, you've been playing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, a few games. So Battlefield 6 open beta now. It's going to last just another day. Playing Dead Take, trying to get through that. It's a short game. And downloaded Mafia, the old country, but also like to play Stormgate. So we'll see how much I can do besides the Battlefield beta.
And I'm jumping around a lot. Mafia, old country. I'm finishing still Split Fiction with a friend, Donkey Kong Bonanza. But my big quest for like the next 12 months is I'm trying to go back and play every single title that I really liked, like Nintendo 1P on the Switch 2 with the new upgraded specs, particularly Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, those are amazing looking. Really cool choices, all mine. I haven't had a lot of time to play lately, but what I've been really having a ton of fun doing is going back and looking at, and I think we talked about this last week, looking at the Nintendo Switch store and seeing the games that are on like the craziest sales, 90% off, these types of things that are like $1, $2, $3, $5 is kind of where my cap is, right? Just, I'm like, okay, let me see what we can do. And just finding some absolute gems that I just completely passed my notice. The one that's hysterical for me is West of Loathing. So funny. Oh my God, I'm just having the best time playing through that. I'm trying to crank out all the puzzles in that Picross one. And then on Steam, I've been going in and getting things like Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, Asteroids Recharged. Picked up Sonic Frontiers, Alex Kidd and Miracle World DX, Xenotilt. I'm a huge sucker for digital pinball games. I love them. Of course, Devil's Crush on the PC Engine, right? You have to get that version of it. The best digital pinball game ever made. Super Moves World of Parkour. Grabbed that before it got delisted. And Slaycation Paradise. So I've got a bunch of games up in the queue here that I need to go ahead and jump in and continue playing. But yeah, too many. And yes, I played Atari today, right? Yes. I just love that little one. That's so fantastic.
Oh, nerds.
That's right. Oh, nerds. But that's going to go ahead and wrap us up to the end of this week's Boss Rush. I want to thank our very special guest, Amir Satvat, for joining us today. Thank you so much, Dean. Glad to have you back and glad you had a fun and safe trip. Of course, we'll be back next week and hopefully we'll have both Mark and Susan back here as well. So thanks, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and awesome weekend. And we'll see you next week on Boss Rush. Bye.